This is Larry, or to use his full title, Chief Mouser to the Cabinet Office Larry, the cat who since 2011 keeps 10 Downing Street, home of the British Prime Minister, and the surrounding office buildings free of rats and mice. That's right, this cat has an official position in the British government, and he's not the first. The tradition of cats as mousers in large government buildings dates in England back to the reign of King Henry VIII, when Lord Chancellor Cardinal Thomas Wolsey had his cat by his side. Officially, however, the practice dates from the 3rd of June 1929, when the Treasury authorised the office keeper of Downing Street to use petty cash, quote, towards the maintenance of an efficient cat, unquote, whose job was to kill mice and rats in the Prime Minister's residence. The first cat to take up this official post was called Rufus of England, also known as Treasury Bill, who took up office in 1929, serving under the first Labour Prime Minister Ramsey MacDonald. Rufus's time overlapped with the arrival in Downing Street of another cat, Peter. Rufus departed in 1930, leaving Peter as Chief Mouser. Peter was the large black cat that was already living at the Home Office. Civil servants working in Downing Street kept feeding him with scraps brought from home, a situation that caused Peter to stop hunting vermin. The government rectified this issue by the Treasury creating a 1p per day spending bill for the Chief Mouser's upkeep, the reduction in food causing him to get back to work. Peter served 5 Prime Ministers, Ramsey MacDonald, Stanley Baldwin, Neville Chamberlain, Winston Churchill and Clement Attlee, and remained Chief Mouser right through World War II and the Blitz and V-Weapons campaign against London. However, in the 1930s and 40s, several other Mousers were present in Downing Street. The Munich Mouser served from 1937 to 1943, and there was also Nelson, who worked solely for Churchill during the war years, another black cat. There was fierce rivalry between the Munich Mouser and Nelson. The Munich Mouser had been Chamberlain's cat, while Nelson, a rough and ready black stray cat, impressed Churchill by chasing off a large black dog that threatened him one day. Churchill was moved to write, "Nelson is the bravest cat I ever knew." Nelson appeared to have won the battle for the title of Chief Mouser and was often seen by Churchill's side at wartime cabinet meetings. Chief Mouser Peter was unofficially succeeded in 1946 by Peter II, yet another black cat who served under Labour Prime Minister Clement Attlee. As for the original Peter, well, he was put down at the age of 17 in 1946. Unfortunately, Peter II was run over and killed by a car in Whitehall in June 1947, before being officially confirmed in the office, and was replaced by the imaginatively named Peter III in August 1947. Peter III had a long and distinguished mousing career, serving Prime Ministers Clement Attlee, Winston Churchill during his second administration in the early 1950s, Anthony Eden, Harold Macmillan, and Sir Alec Douglas-Home. Sadly, in March 1964, Peter III succumbed to a liver infection and was put down at the age of 16. A replacement was quickly sought and came from an unusual source. Up until 1964, the office of Chief Mouser had been filled by rough and ready street cats and strays, but the Lieutenant Governor of the Isle of Man, Sir Ronald Garvey, sent one of his island's famous Manx cats to the Prime Minister. A pedigree breed, the Manx has no tail, and the new Chief Mouser was also different from all other previous incumbents in being female. Named Petter in honour of the 3 cats called Peter, Petter proved to be idle, ill-suited to the job, and not toilet-trained. But while many in Downing Street wanted to be rid of Petter, the government covered up the cat's failings to the public, which adored her. Petter was eventually quietly retired to the country in the early 1970s. In 1973, a new Chief Mouser was appointed. Wilberforce served Prime Ministers Edward Heath, Harold Wilson, Jim Callaghan and Margaret Thatcher, and earned the sobriquet Best Mouser in Britain. In 1973, Wilberforce was adopted from an RSPCA shelter in Hounslow, London, and received a living allowance from the government for his upkeep. A black and white cat, an expert mouser, the policeman always on duty outside number 10 had orders to ring the bell if Wilberforce was waiting to come inside. Thatcher had an excellent relationship with Wilberforce, famously buying him a tin of sardines during her trip to Moscow. In 1986, Wilberforce retired and went to live with a former number 10 caretaker in the country. He died in his sleep in May 1988, age 14 or 15. Replacing the ailing Wilberforce was Humphrey, who arrived at number 10 in 1988 as a one-year-old stray, and named after the civil servant Sir Humphrey Appleby in the hit TV shows Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. Humphrey cost the Cabinet Office £100 a year, and like the previous holder of the office, was an expert mouser. Vermin is a continuous problem in Downing Street, the government buildings being a hodgepodge of styles and eras dating from the 16th to the 20th centuries and adjacent to St James's Park. Unfortunately, Humphrey took such joy in killing things that he branched out from rats and mice to birds. In June 1994, he was accused of having terminated 4 robin chicks that were in a nesting box outside Prime Minister John Major's office, but a thorough investigation found Humphrey to be innocent. But in September of the same year, Humphrey was discovered in St James's Park and was accused of having savaged an innocent duck there earlier in the year. But then, in June 1995, Humphrey disappeared. After much press coverage, Humphrey was found to be living in the nearby Royal Army Medical College. On arrival back in Downing Street, Humphrey issued the following statement. "I have had a wonderful holiday at the Royal Army Medical College, but it is nice to be back, and I am looking forward to the new parliamentary session." However, Humphrey faced a new challenge with Prime Minister Tony Blair and family when they moved into number 10 in May 1997. Cherie Blair, the Prime Minister's wife, apparently did not get along with Humphrey. There were even fears that Humphrey would be forced out of office. Officially, Humphrey retired due to kidney problems, but bad blood with Cherie Blair remains another possible reason. Humphrey moved in with an elderly couple in London in 1997, but rumours abounded that Humphrey had in fact been murdered on Cherie Blair's orders, and in response the government took a group of journalists to a secret location in South London to visit the still very much alive Humphrey. Humphrey passed away aged 17 or 18 in March 2006. The next chief mouser was Sybil, the second female to hold the title, and named after Basil Fawlty's wife from the TV show Fawlty Towers. During most of the Blair years there was no chief mouser after Humphrey retired, until Sybil, who was from Edinburgh in Scotland, who was in post in September 2007. She actually belonged to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Alastair Darling, and served briefly as chief mouser under Prime Minister Gordon Brown. But Sybil missed Scotland and went to live with a friend of the Darlings and died in July 2009. The post of chief mouser again fell vacant, during which time rats were actually filmed scurrying across the number 10 front steps. Clearly a chief mouser was needed, and quickly. Prime Minister David Cameron and his family selected a cat from Battersea Dogs and Cats Home in London in February 2011 and named him Larry. But Larry was reputedly sacked by Cameron in September 2012 in favour of Chancellor of the Exchequer George Osborne's tabby cat Freya, while some outlets reported that it was in fact a job share arrangement between the two felines. But Larry was confirmed as the one and only chief mouser in November 2014 when Freya left Downing Street, and so Larry remains unchallenged in his post today. Except for one problem. Palmerston, chief mouser to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office near Downing Street. Their territories overlap, On the 11th of July 2016, things came to a head in an intense standoff between Palmerston and Larry in and around Downing Street. On the 26th of July, Palmerston sneaked into number 10 through the front door, but was found and escorted from the building by police. Then, on the 1st of August 2016, another standoff between Palmerston and Larry turned very ugly. During the ensuing scrap, Palmerston injured an ear, while Larry had his collar torn off. Larry, now aged 12, remains as Chief Mouser to the Cabinet Office. Most recently, Larry caused a stir by sheltering from the rain underneath President Donald Trump's armoured limousine, the Beast, during the President's visit to Prime Minister Theresa May and refusing to come out from underneath. To all my subscribers and viewers, a very happy New Year. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also help support my channel at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box.